Welcome, and we are going to just do a last round of discussion on hidden Markov models. Reference is PRML, the same book. Okay, so in the last class we had seen uh, this joint distribution of hidden Markov models, right? So basically, it is you start from an initial state, uh, you emit something p of x1 given z1, then you go to the next state z2. So you have transition probability of z2 given z1, and then you emit something p of x2 given z2, then again make a transition. In this way, you can compute the joint distribution or the probability of every random variable together. Okay. So today we are going to discuss. So in the last class we had seen, okay, if a model is given to you, so what is the meaning that pz1 given, pzn given zn minus 1 and pxn given zn. If you are given models for these, then how do you compute different things like inference? How do you do inference? How do you, uh, if I give you a sequence of x, a sequence of observations, let us say, whether it is speech recognition or it is a sequence of temperatures over so many days, how do you find the underlying season? Like, so, or in speech recognition, how do you find the underlying phonemes? So all these things we discussed in the last class. It's called inference. So it means estimating the z's, the latent variables z1, z2, z3, given the observations x1, x2, x3. That was the inference problem which we had discussed. We had discussed how to compute these log likelihoods, right? Given the data, how do you find the likelihood of this data, right? Simply from this equation you can find. Then, of course, you have to marginalize over the z's. That is simple. Then we saw how do you generate new data. Given this model, how do you generate new data, right? That was also very simple. Okay, today we are going to discuss something which you are already an expert in, how to estimate the parameters of the model. So all of you know, okay, what are the approaches to estimate? Maximum likelihood approach, map, Bayesian, okay, fine, Bayesian to estimate the probabilities of the parameters. EM algorithm is a kind of maximum likelihood algorithm, but it has the property that it is applicable only for discrete latent variables, right? So HMMs has discrete or continuous latent variables? Discrete or continuous? Discrete, good. What is the difference between discrete latent variable and continuous latent variable? Okay, that will be our end sum question. Okay, I'm just joking. So my understanding is, yeah. Why does EM algorithm work on? Because um, because the Jensen inequality which we had discussed, Jensen's inequality, right? EM algorithm is based on Jensen's inequality, because using Jensen's inequality only you formulate that auxiliary loss function or objective function. So Jensen's inequality, will it work on continuous latent variables? I don't know. I have never seen EM algorithm being used on continuous latent variables. Maybe I will get back to you if uh, I'll try to see. I'll try to find it out. Okay, so my understanding of the difference between discrete latent variable and continuous latent variable is that in discrete latent variables, you assume that data is coming from one cluster, right? Whether it is k-means clustering or it is GMM based model, you assume that there is one cluster from which data is coming, right? First you choose a cluster, then you choose the data, right? So each data point is associated with single cluster. But in continuous latent variables, each point is associated with like basically many of them together. Like you see PCA, one data point is decomposed into so many uh, latent eigenvectors, right? So you represent one data point with so many eigenvectors. You do not assume that this data point is coming only from single eigenvector and you are randomly choosing one of the eigenvectors, right? Similarly, whereas NMF, NMF also you try to reconstruct the observation using these basis vectors. So you do not assume that your observation is coming from a single cluster or a single representation or vector, right? Yeah, yeah, yes. So yeah, but in this case we are assuming z, individual z node, that is a scalar, and from there you are getting a scalar means it's a discrete random variable, and from there you get a distribution px given that z. We are not using x from many clusters. Where are we using them? But all of those are discrete latent variables, right? So their combination will also be a discrete latent variable. No. It's one vector. Like your z will, let's say your each z is 0, 1 means binary. You take 10 of these z. That will be how many latent variables? It's like 2 to the power 10. So it doesn't become continuous. Anyways, so let's move on. So the basic point is that for estimating the parameters, we saw ML estimate, map, Bayesian approach, which we hardly discussed actually, and then we discussed EM algorithm and what else? What else did we see? Dynamic programming. Good. That is that is for sequential data, and that is a kind of we use maximum likelihood approach, but with an approximation which is called Bellman's optimality approximation, where we do very greedy search. Right? Okay. What else? Gradient descent, right? Gradient descent, the easiest one. But in many cases it becomes difficult to stabilize or difficult to implement, or it does not converge very quickly. Okay, so for this model we can use ML estimation and we can explicitly get all the update rules. So that is the utility of this model, that it can be easily, all the parameters can be estimated using maximum likelihood estimation. Okay, so let's go back to the basics. What is ML estimation? So you define a likelihood function, which is basically probability of all the observations given your model, right? That is your likelihood. L theta is probability, log of probability of x1 to xn given theta. This is your log likelihood. Now you can decompose your log likelihood. Basically, you can introduce latent variables, which in this case is z, z1 to zn. These are your latent variables. So you have written it as joint distribution of observation and latent variables, and you are marginalizing over the latent variables. Right? So this is already what this you have already seen, and now I can just write it as a conditional form. P of x given the latent variables and into P of latent variables. Right? This is simple product rule, no approximation involved here. Okay, now this is a difficult to solve problem because you have log, which is inside the log there is summation. So your log cannot operate on each term. So That is why to differentiate it becomes very difficult. So we use an approximation which is coming from Jensen's inequality. Uh, Jensen's inequality is applicable here because log is a concave, right? Concave function, whatever it is. So Jensen's inequality is applicable because log has that f double dash x is less than 0. Then you can write down, you can multiply with, actually it can be any function, any probability distribution over z, right? Any probability distribution over z, we say this is pz given x, comma theta old. That is how we define it for EM algorithm. And then we can use Jensen's inequality. We can bring out this q, and log thing remains here. The denominator was gone because that does not play any role in optimization, in maximization of theta. Okay. Now what you get, this is your auxiliary function, right? Now you want to use EM algorithm using this as your auxiliary function. Okay. So using first order Markov property, you can say q of z1 to zn can be written as zn given zn minus 1 product overall, because you know nth latent variable only depends on the n minus 1th and it is independent of everything else conditionally. Okay. And the EM algorithm can be used. In the E step, you have to make your q equal to this distribution. Okay, if you remember your EM, you are maximizing your likelihood. Let's say this is your actual L function, which is very difficult to optimize. So you will find an auxiliary function, something like this. This is your q of theta comma theta old. This is your theta. So in the beginning you are here, you make your, this is your theta old, let's say theta 0. You define this q curve such that it is of this nature, you obtain its maximum, and then this is your theta 1, right? And as soon as you reach the maximum, you again define another q which is passing through this. This is your q at, right here, theta old was theta 0. I'm just repeating, I'm just kind of revising the concepts which you have already studied. Okay, that's how you proceed towards the global maximum or whatever. It might not be optimally global, but the local maximum, but you can analytically find the solution at every step, right? Okay, this is the Q step. So now you have to compute this probability of z given x. It is not easy to compute. It is not easy to compute. Means it is easy, but not straightforward. Okay. Then, but we will come back to this. Now in the M step, what do you do? In the M step, you are doing argmax expected value of log of px comma pz, and you are optimizing for theta given your gamma or the responsibilities, right? So now you have to solve these two equations, which are not very easy to solve. So basically in the first step you are finding the responsibility of each z to produce that outcome. In the second step you are actually updating your probability of x given z using those responsibilities, right? If you remember, if you correlate it with the GMM algorithms for the EM algorithm for GMM, you will immediately be able to see the connection. Okay. In this case, M step is very easy because once you know the responsibility of each z, like how much likelihood is that this data comes from this z, then you can immediately use, you can use your just to learn the matrix, you can just count the number of like you're transitioning from k equal to 1 to k equal to 2. Just count how many times the k equal to 1 goes to k equal to 2. Just sum them up and that's it. You're done, right? The weighted sum, because it's a responsibility thing. Okay, so it's an easy thing. M step is easy, but E step is bit involved, and this is a very old algorithm called Baum-Welch algorithm or forward-backward algorithm, which is used to compute these probabilities. It's a simple mathematical kind of manipulation, but uh, it does the job very effectively or very efficiently. Okay, but the thing is that you are assuming each observation is coming from uh, means I have this much likelihood or this much probability that it is coming from this z, this much probability that it is coming from this z, this much probability that it is coming from this z, right? K equal to 1, k equal to 2, k equal to 3 with some probabilities, right? So it's a uh, that is why it becomes very difficult. Can you suggest a simpler approach with some approximation? Uh, Maybe I think I should give you some more. Let me see if I have that figure. I have removed it. Okay. No, I have removed it. Okay, it's here. Okay. I have it. Okay. So this is a recap of Viterbi algorithm. So what you basically do is you have your x somewhere here. You have xn minus 2 emitted from here, xn minus 1 emitted here, and xn emitted here, right? So you assume that your xn minus 2 is coming from k equal to 3 with the probability of p xn minus 2 given zn minus 2 is equal to 3, right? Look at this. Pxn minus 2 given pzn minus 2 is equal to k equal to 3. This zn minus 2 is equal to 3 with some probability. Are you getting it? Okay, let me write it down. Probability that x, let's say xn given z right? Right? So you are basically just like you did in your GMM case. In GMM case, you said P of x given your z, and now what is the gamma or the responsibility that Zn is equal to 1? What is the responsibility gamma that Zn is equal to 2? Right? And then you summed over all of these and then optimized, right? If you remember it. So can you do a simplification? Okay, let me give the answer. How you can simplify, instead of saying that my observation is, instead of saying that the responsibilities are distributed, you assume that, okay, the single value is responsible for the outcome. Like I can say, okay, if you do beta-B decoding, what does it give you? Beta-B decoding gives you a single path. It doesn't give you the soft scores. Okay, maybe it is coming from this node or this value of k with this much probability, this value of k with this much probability. It does not give you a soft distribution. It gives you a hard assignment. Okay, it is coming from this node. That is it, right? So if I can use that kind of approximation, basically the responsibility is a delta function. The responsibility is a delta function that, okay, it just comes from this node, and which I can find from the Viterbi algorithm, the exact paths or the most likely paths. So the thing is, okay, you have a model, you initialize your model randomly or in some intelligent way, and then using that model, compute the best paths using Viterbi algorithm, then assume that path to be correct, and then estimate your parameters or re-estimate your parameters. And then using those parameters, again find the Viterbi path, the best path, again re-estimate your parameters, right? So instead of assigning soft responsibilities, you assign hard responsibilities with the help of Viterbi algorithm, and then your calculations become so much simpler. But of course, it's an approximation, right? Because you're not using soft weights, but you're using hard responsibilities. It is an approximation, but it works. So then your E step becomes simply Viterbi algorithm. that you estimate your best path by finding this, basically Viterbi algorithm, right? And then in the M step, you are estimating your theta or updating your theta by optimizing this, which is very easy. Just like in Gaussian mixture model, if I tell you the responsibilities, it becomes so easy because now you just consider about, just think about single Gaussian, not about every Gaussian, but just single Gaussian. You can update your mean with the means of the data points which belong to this cluster and the variance with the variance of the data points which belong to this cluster. That's it. So I'm doing a hard assignment, not a soft assignment. Okay. Okay. So an analogous of this in the GMM domain will be you do k-means clustering and find your what is it called? Your Gaussian parameters. Okay. So just same thing. Given old theta, estimate the best path using Viterbi algorithm. Then given this best path, estimate your theta, and then iterate this until convergence. This is a very simple algorithm. No need of Baum-Welch, no need of forward-backward algorithm, no need of soft responsibilities. You save a lot of computations, a lot of calculations. But the thing is that this works very efficiently. But unfortunately, it's not there in any book. This method is not discussed in any book. Like you see any standard textbooks on HMM, they will discuss Baum-Welch algorithm or forward-backward algorithm, but they won't discuss this method, which is the most practical one. So it saves a lot of computations and calculations, performs very well with large data, and popularly used for ASR training. Like current state-of-the-art ASR systems, they all use this algorithm. Like find the single best path, update your probabilities, the distributions, and that is it. No need of Baum-Welch, no need of soft assignments. Okay, so that was something which which you will get only when you go to a particular field and work with HMMs and you see, oh, really people don't use forward backward algorithm actually. Okay, so summarizing the HMM portion. So we saw making models for sequential or temporal data, finding time alignments of states. Okay, given a model, how do you find the best states? How do you find the likelihoods? For example, if I give you a speech recognition model, ASR model, and I give you a speech, I give you some sentence. Can you find the boundaries? When does each word start? When does it end? Right? If the model is given, it's very easy. Using Viterbi algorithm, you can just find it. Technically, it is called forced alignment because you're aligning your model with your data. You're just finding the temporal alignments, right? When does this state start? When does this state start? Z ends, right? And okay, what if the sequence of states is not given? Maybe I will spend some time on this problem. If I tell you, I'll go back to my old example, Hari. H plus Schwa plus V plus E. So if I tell you, you make a model of H, let us say the beginning of H, the middle of H, and the end of H. This is your H model. Then you take another model of Schwa. Then you take another model, similarly, model of R. Then similarly, the model for E. And concatenate them all. Right? If I give you a speech waveform saying Hari, it is saying Hari. Tell me, when does H start and end? When does A start and end? When does R start and end? And when does E start and end? Can you tell me? I give you the HMM model, H, R, E, the HMM models I have given to you, and I have given you this new speech recording. Can you find out the alignments? How will you do that? Pardon? Yes, you're right. So you do left to right HMM models. Basically, the transition probabilities are limited that her can only go to a, it cannot go to r, cannot go to e, cannot go to silence anywhere else. Yeah, you got the point. So basically, you build a left to right HMM model with these constraints that your path can be only in this order. The order is defined, but the exact alignment is not defined. And then allow the Viterbi algorithm to find the exact alignment for you, right? That is how you do it. That is called forced alignment problem, right? So this is what is forced alignment. Next is, what if the sequence of states is also not given? This is a real ASR problem, real speech recognition problem. You don't even know what the person is saying. Like I may say Hari, but how do you find out what did I say? So you have to now consider all these models. Let us say there are 100 words which are possible. I can say Hari or Kamala, Rama, Kashyapa, so many words I can say. So you consider all those models. Now you have to find which model fits the best, the maximum likelihood, right? Which model fits the best. And there are optimal ways to do it because with her, many words will start, put them all together. With Ra, like Rama, Ravi, so many words will start, put them all together and build a graph like this. And then it becomes very efficient. Yes, yes, good point. Yes. So I can add a prior belief. Okay, this is the probability of my word. So I can add my prior belief. Yes. Okay, so that problem is called decoding. Maybe if we do a course on speech recognition, we can go to details of that. But for HMM, these are general concepts. You can use it for speech. You can use it for any temporal data, like events, like audio events. That data you can use. You can use it for finding seasons in the year. You can use it for, let's say, in cricket match, looking at the score, you want to see who is batting. Just given the score, you estimate when did whoever is the latest player. I don't know the names of the players. When did this person got out? Can you detect from just looking at the scores? So you build a model for each batsman, and then fit it on your data, and then from there you can say, oh, this batsman was playing from this over to this over, and then his innings was over. He was back to pavilion. Okay, so you can use it for any sequential data. Next we saw estimating the parameters of HMM given the observations and the corresponding sequence of states. This is a supervised problem. I'm giving you a recording of Hari and I'm telling you this is Hari. And then you train your model on that. Supervised learning, right? I'm not telling you exactly which time frame belongs to her. Those things I'm not telling you, but I'm telling you the labels. Okay, this is Hari, and you find out on your own wherever are they starting. Right? That's an easy problem. Easy in the sense that you have the tools to solve that problem. But what if I don't even tell you the states? I don't even tell you the labels. I just give you lots of speech data, and I ask you to model it with HMMs. That is more difficult. It's called unsupervised ASR. It's not very popular as of now, but people are working on it. Like if I just give you lots of speech in some language, can it automatically build an ASR system? So this is like current research is going on in this problem. Okay. Anybody has any questions at this point of time? Fingerprint? Viterbi algorithm? I think it is. I was going through it and I think it is optimal given the constraints we have put there. The first order Markov property and limited set of states.